7:05. You can turn it on?
Yep, it's on.
Is it on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, the time is now 7:05, and I'm going to call to order the October 18th, 2017 Tilton Budget Committee meeting. First order of business is the meeting minutes. So if you've had a chance to review them, give everybody else a chance to who hasn't had a chance to do that. Everybody had a chance to review it?
I make a motion we accept the meeting minutes of October 11th, 2017.
I second the motion.
Any discussion?
Yeah, said that the Forest Board had a public hearing once deciding on its use. The public hearing wasn't just a comment, not for deciding on the use. I don't know if you want me public input.
John, what page is that on?
Oh, page 2 of 3.
Yep.
Change it to had a public hearing for input on its use.
Okay. Get that, Joanne? All right.
Let's
Any
do it.
further discussion? You want to change the motion?
Take, you gotta take your second back.
I take my second
I'll
back.
take my motion back, and John, go ahead, sir. Motion for the meeting minutes with the amendment,
With the amendment, yes.
so seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain? I wasn't here.
One abstention. Okay. All right, the next is the Old Home Day. And
We get to go first?
we have to go first.
Come on.
As a member of the Old Home Day Committee, I'm going to excuse myself.
Okay.
You may do that too. All right. You want to come up here, Joe? Joe?
Yeah, have a seat, Joe.
Come on, you're part of the committee.
I am part of the
Put you in
committee.
the hot
And would
seat.
you please sign the attendance?
Oh, I've got one, but
So I'm Deb Shepherd,
I'm Scott Haskins.
and that's my husband Joe. He's on the committee too, Joe
I
Tucker.
do.
Come join us if you'd like.
He's low profile.
He's here.
Hiding, good job.
He's just waiting to go get something to eat after we're done this.
And we know
Smart man.
Joe and Scott. Do you know everybody on the
Yeah, I don't recognize you.
Stephen Decatur.
Stephen Mikado? All right.
Wayne Brock?
Jane Alden?
John Scadwell?
Thank you.
and I know Scott.
Yes, we all work.
Well, if
There's
you
only
want a
6 of
committee,
us
I
on-
would assume you did.
There's only 6 of us on the committee, so we all know each other pretty well.
You see me from the Pines. I'm on the Pines committee as well, so you might have seen me there.
Thank you.
You want over there?
Doesn't matter.
I saw you at the school board. That's where.
Yes, I'm at the school board. I speak my mind sometimes.
Okay.
Okay.
Floor is yours, man.
So we are here just to ask for our same appropriation that you do every year, which is $3,000. Last year, I know somebody gave us a hard time about having too much money in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
So we made sure this year that we invested some money back into the Old Home Day Committee because we were getting to the point where we were, and Jane knows because she helped us a couple of years, where we nickel and dime and we try to stretch and we soda for one thing, like soda, when they have soda 5 for $10, we'd all go in and buy 5 cases of soda. And and then expense it, and we did stuff to stretch and stretch and stretch, and we finally got to the point where we need to start reinvesting into the committee. So this year, you can see we started out with $7,400. We had a pretty good year. We had attendance was pretty good. Weather was beautiful. We ended though with $5,200. So we're actually $2,100 down, but it's because we invested it into the Old Home Day. We ended up buying. There was a trailer out behind Northfield Garage that we used for storage. It was a big trailer, and they had that terrible accident there the year before where they lost one of their highway workers. He got pinned against the trailer and he passed away. And the trailer was falling apart. It was old, so we decided to invest, and we purchased the red trailer. Now you see it sitting right next to the highway garage. They flattened out where the salt shed was for us, and they put it there. It's from Tilton Trailer Rental. We purchased that for $34.95. It's a nice trailer. It's clean. We have plenty of room.
Yeah, very sturdy as compared
Yeah.
to the other one.
And it's on the ground level.
Yeah.
No more walking up and down stairs, loading and unloading stuff. It was awful.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, this is perfect.
This is ground level, so it's easy to get in and out, you know?
So we spent the $34.95 on that. That was part of our appropriation, is where we spent some of the money. And then we went to Sam's Club recently, and we spent $927, and we purchased another grill, because our grills are about probably 8-9 years old.
Falling apart.
$400.
I can vouch for that.
And we do, as part of the community, we do lend those out to like nonprofits that want to use them. We've lent them to Downtown Day things here, and the chief, and Joe uses them all the time.
Over at Tilton Diner when we have
Yeah.
those kind of events.
And then we bought some more tables, and we bought some more coolers, all the things that kind of get beat up and worn out. So we invested about $4,500 back into Old Home Day this year. We do have an appropriation sheet on the very last sheet. We talk about expenditures and improvements. We have a couple of things we're going to need to do, and we haven't got an official estimate yet. We're waiting for Wayne Robichaux.
Robichaux.
We need to get some electrical wiring to the trailer, because right now when we're running our refrigerators and our freezers during the weekend, we run extension cords, and that's not cool. We can't keep doing that. So now that the highway garage is finished, the renovations that Northfield had to do, we're going to have an actual box wired on the outside that we can run an actual line to the trailer that will stay there. So we have to pay for that out of our committee. We're assuming the worst case is $1,500. We're hoping it doesn't go more than that. The other thing we're going to need to do is, we've always had Bob Debutante do our fireworks. When I first came on the committee, we were spending about $8,000 for fireworks, and over the years we've gotten it down, because Bob Debutante lives in Northfield, and he gave us a good deal every year. Well, he retired, so somebody else did them for us this year, and they were nice, but they weren't quite what we wanted. They didn't get the height. It was a lot of
Yeah.
smoke. You couldn't really see them.
Did you guys have any feedback from?
We got good and
Folks.
bad, but
I mean, it was like a 50-50. Some folks
Yeah.
liked it, and some folks said, well, they seem better. And
so.
of course, better is always more money. So I mean, it's
Not only that, but it got to a point where you could hardly see
It was,
Yeah.
it's
some
the,
of the
Yeah.
fireworks.
it was the class of fireworks that he went with because of the money.
Right.
It wasn't high enough class. So we're gonna put it, we as a committee have decided we're gonna meet monthly starting in January. We're gonna try to be more organized and get things done that all of a sudden we start doing in April and May, and then we run out of time. So we're gonna put it out to bid. So we're thinking we may end up going back closer to 7,000.
And when we do the bid, I guess this is the first time I'm on this committee. I guess they come in, the fireworks people per se come in. They show you on the laptop
Yeah, a computer
what their fireworks are. Of course, it depends on the weather, obviously, but at least we can see,
And we are
what
gonna
it
check
looks
out
like
the folks.
somewhat.
Billy Lawrence gave me the name and
The
number of the
Parks
people that do it
Department,
for you
yeah.
guys, yeah. So we're gonna check out them too, but we're gonna put it out to bid. We're gonna actually go through a bid process, and we're gonna see if we can get for a little bit more money.
Big bang for a buck, per se.
And then another thing we did this year, I don't know if people noticed it, unless you have little kids, is we spent a little extra money and had the wildlife encounters come in, and went over really well. The Northfield PD let us use their garage, the two stalls where it was nice and cool, and they brought in the 7 different animals, and the kids loved it. So we want to do more of that too. We want to invest back into Old Home Day and maybe have another band. The bands cost us $400. We have 2 right now. Maybe another band for the parade. Maybe another entertainer, a juggler, a magician, something, just to keep the kids down at the park, keep the families at the park.
I don't know who they had. I went to an event at the Methodist Church on Main Street, and they had a magician, juggler, and I thought he was very, very good. I don't know, you might want to contact them to see who they had.
Okay.
He was very good with the little kids, and there were a lot of little kids there.
Yeah.
And even I enjoyed it too, so, you know, it wasn't just something for little kids.
Yeah.
But his interaction with the kids was great, so I don't know who he was, but you might want to check with them.
Yeah, that's something you can do outside as well,
Yeah.
if that police station is occupied by
Yeah.
wildlife. Yeah.
I know one of the reasons there was some concern last year was that there was a lot of money, there seemed to be a lot of money left over and nothing was being done with it.
Right.
And I'm glad to see, I want to compliment you on reinvesting in Old Home Day, because when I was on the committee, I know how desperately we're in need of things. And for any audience watching, Old Home Day continues to need volunteers.
Yes.
There's so much work to do, and not just preparing for Old Home Day, work that day and afterwards. The grills have to be cleaned. People get up early in the morning and go and clean the grills. People loan us pressure washers, and we use those. And so if you have some extra time, get in touch with Old Home Day Committee, and I'm sure they can use your help. The only other question I have, on electrical wiring, do you go out to bid on other things? I mean, that's a lot of money, $1,500. Have you gone out to bid on that?
We haven't, Tony Cross was handling this, and he said, the towns always use Wayne Robichaux for things, and they're comfortable with him. We can if somebody tells us we need to, we can. We're hoping that Wayne will, give us a nonprofit
Deal.
Northfield resident deal,
Other people might too. I just think, I don't know.
It's
whether
not set in stone, but yeah.
whether you have any rules or anything else, but I mean, usually if something's over a certain amount, it's maybe a good idea to go out to bid, I find.
We don't have that policy because we never spend money, but that's, you gotta.
If we're gonna spend money now, it's a good time
The
to.
gentleman from the Legion, we might get in touch with him, the ones that did the obstacle course. He was an electrician.
I know there's another one that we've used at the senior center, and we found out the hard way at the senior center, that sometimes the cheapest one is not the best.
Right.
We just had to have some more wiring done,
Right.
and the wiring we just had to have done, if it hadn't been done, the building could have burned down.
Well, I think that's why,
Plumbing issues over there too.
I think that's why Wayne Robichaux's name, because he's done other work for the town, and he's done work for the Horseful people at their little thing there, and he has a history with Tony.
The good thing about a bid process is that they'll come back with a bid. You will decide who gets the job
Right.
based upon not only the money, but what best fits
Right.
Yeah.
the job.
And
So
you
Wayne
can
Robichaux,
specify exactly what you want.
Right.
right. The other thing is, the other question I have is, Northfield he's on the same page with putting this electrical stuff on the outside of their
Yes,
their
when
building.
we put the trailer in, they knew that, because they really don't want us running
You
into
may want to
Central.
have a letter of understanding, mutual understanding, that that's what it's there for, to be used, therefore you're covered, because they'll come and say, oh, you did that? We didn't give you permission.
No, we're gonna do it all with the selectman and the highway guy. He's on board with it. He's already cleared it with the
But
selectman.
just get
Yep.
the memo of understanding
That's a good point, yeah.
that's there.
Yeah.
I have no problem with going over Schultz's work, and if they're comfortable with it, I think that the point is, if we got 3 bids, they're all within $100 of each, your selection.
Right, and it makes
We
you,
would never
and it makes
question
you
it.
realize that the price you're getting is a fair price.
Right.
Yeah, now, that was like not a quick
This is a-
response, that was like our last meeting.
Right.
We need something
No, this
put
is
on
good.
paper, but, from your suggestions, we can our next meeting, we can definitely discuss it with.
We
the-
haven't moved forward.
Yeah, we haven't, there was
There's
just a
no
number.
rush, because we just need it done
Yeah.
for June.
And then the neat part about it is, once things are in writing, the disputes go way down.
Right.
Right.
You know, like if we have a memo of understanding, this is what it's there for, you guys signed it, bye-bye,
Yep, no, perfect, yep.
okay?
Okay. Any other questions?
No?
Well, I thank you for your time.
Well, and since we are being recorded and stuff, we are having the Old Home Day Halloween party next on the 28th.
At
If
the
anyone's
Pines?
interested,
Yep,
at the Pines,
Pines,
there's no
yep.
charge. We just want people to come out and learn a little bit about Old Home Day and the committee, and maybe get some people interested in volunteering and stepping up and helping with the event and
have fun.
have fun.
There's
Chief
costumes and
Chief Cormier is going to be our DJ, and
And hopefully, like what you said, we need volunteers. I mean, a lot of the committees in both towns need a lot of volunteers, so hopefully, while they're there, we can
Yeah.
speak our mind and
maybe
hopefully
get to talk to some people and
get some
let 'em know.
signatures on the committee,
Yeah.
per se.
it's a lot of fun to
So-
be a part of. It's fun to go to, but it really is fun to be a part of. I enjoy it like nobody's business.
And we
I
are giving
enjoyed it
out-
when I did it.
We
too.
are
I
giving
was-
out
Yeah.
cash prizes for three different costumes, so who knows?
And is there a theme?
I'm
Is
sure
there a
that this,
theme?
the town of Tilton Public Works will gladly help to pick up after.
I think
I'm
that
very
would
sorry
be
for
great.
What happened last year.
It's okay. We work out the kinks as we go. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
We'll make it work.
Kind of-
No,
We would
appreciate it.
appreciate all the help we could
Make
get.
sure
No, we
that
appreciate
that's
it.
understood. how that
This
works.
is good, you and I can go as old people.
I was gonna say, I already have my costume. I'm wearing it.
Thanks so much.
You're
Yeah.
very welcome.
Thank you very much.
There's always
Thanks,
Tilton
guys.
Northfield on Dome Day, not
And
just
John, if
Northfield,
you're ever
right?
looking to work at the Old Home Day event, let me know.
Yeah, Dave, if you have any free time, we're always looking for.
I may be available. I'm feeling a lot better now. I was really sick, that's why I couldn't.
I know.
We appreciate it.
Couldn't stand on my feet for 10 hours helping Joe sling bags.
He does a mean slinging too. He does a great job.
Or you can have a chair and flip burgers.
There you go. You can take the money.
It was Joey, Jane, and Joe for a while.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'll see you the next time.
Okay, we'll see you on the 28th.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'll be in touch.
Okay.
And Deb, good luck with your new endeavors.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is CASA. Did you hear anything from CASA?
Well, I got till 7:30.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to discuss what happens when people don't show up.
Well, I was gonna bring that up, but before that, there's one other thing I'd like to bring up. We have a letter here, Partnership for Public Health, and we had a cutoff date. What was our cutoff date? The first? October 1st. Has anybody had a chance to look at this?
I did.
I happened to be at the selectmen's meeting when they came and made a presentation. I think, this is my opinion, is that we had a cutoff date. They did not meet the cutoff date. They're welcome to request funds next year. How does everybody else feel?
I agree totally that, send it in next year and do that. These are nonprofit organizations, 501c3s that are soliciting funds and donations. They are welcome to do other fundraising as they see fit. Cutoff dates.
Okay.
Would you like to make a motion, or would you like me to?
No, that's our rule, right?
Yeah, I don't think we even need to make a motion. I do think, Joanne, if you could get in touch with Joyce, since the letter went to her, tell her that our cutoff date was the 1st, so she can handle it however she would like.
Sure.
And I'm just not, I hate to say this, but I'm feeling pretty cheap and not particularly generous this year with people who don't respond to us. We've had 2 people, did you hear anything from the 2 that did not show up last week?
I did not.
How do other people feel about it? I feel people don't have the courtesy to show up.
I agree 100%.
We have a lot of town things that we're working on. We have a police station that we're working on and funding for that. A lot of other things. We'll probably have one of the highest tax increases this year that we've had in many, many years. And I don't think that we should be going out and trying to get people who can't even show up.
That's how
So
I
we can
feel.
give them money. Not this year. It's not a good year for it.
Any other comments? Joe?
I know that these places do good works. The fact they didn't show up there might be a lot of reasons. They might have been scheduled in another town on the same night. I don't know. And I agree that if you want the town to support your organization, you should have the decency to show up at the hearing, but, you know, to get the money. So I'm kind of torn, but I'm thinking if you don't show, we don't go.
Well, the two that did not show last week did not show last year.
Yeah.
And one of them had what we accepted as a valid reason. However, as far as I know, that case that they had last year in which they lost an employee, they lost the executive director. I don't believe that happened again this year. And so we gave them plenty of notice. The other one has traditionally been very slow to show up.
Casa, I don't think hardly ever shows up, do they? Casa.
They've shown up, I
No,
think, every
they've
year.
shown up every year. I'm not talking Casa, this was
I'm thinking of something else. There's somebody who doesn't.
Red Cross.
Red Cross.
Doesn't show.
Sometimes
Red
they don't
Cross,
even
they
claim,
never show
some-
up, and they didn't show up again this year.
sometimes they don't even claim their money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I say, I'm not, I think that because of the tax situation right now,
Mm-hmm.
because of the economy, because of the cutbacks to nonprofits all over, we've been very generous, and unfortunately, we lost our transportation because we did support
Yes.
Winnie Transit. Other communities did not. And, you know, that's sad, but that's the way it goes. We did ours. But I don't see supporting organizations that don't call or give us valid reasons. And they've had a week after the week they didn't show up. And Johanna has heard nothing, so.
And I agree with that. I think it's right. We're going to have a hard enough sell this year. $180,000 for dispatchers. We have people looking at this year's budget with all the, and rightly so, but all the public works equipment that was bought. We had good money and how that got financed. So there's going to be a lot of scrutiny and a lot of pressure to cut even that $180,000 for the dispatchers. Because the school's going to go up with the budget. We know that. Especially now that the superintendent has nothing to lose. Because she's resigned at the end of the year. So we're going to have some really hard sells to the townspeople. So in that case, if you can't come to show up, then we can use the money to take care of some of the other shortfalls that we can anticipate.
I'm hard pressed to even think about dispatchers. That's a lot of money, and that'll be $250,000 in no time.
Yeah.
And we'll still have to pay the county that portion that we've been paying towards the dispatch service that we receive now. Because there's no deduction.
And you know someone who knows the ins and outs of the budgets, and we won't mention Scott's name, will make sure that that becomes a point of that meeting that we will try to defend. This gentleman hasn't been able to talk.
I'm sorry, what? I'm listening, Marvin.
What do you think, what would you like to do with the people that don't show up?
I don't think, if they don't have the courtesy to show up, and at least notify us in advance that they're not gonna be able to make it, then I don't think they really want it. But that's-
I agree. You spoke up first, as a matter of fact, saying that.
I mean, I get this a lot, not just here, but I mean, I have people that, you know, they call up, they set up appointments to come and do something, and they never show up. And I get people that have been making an appointment, and then they make a time, and all of a sudden they're knocking on the door expecting you to spend time, and I said, I ain't got time, I'm going to a wedding. I ain't got time.
And I think in the past, we haven't had a lot of local causes to support, but I think now we have a lot more that we need to support. Okay, so does everybody agree that,
Yes.
somebody like to make a motion to fund those two at zero?
Oh, yes, I make the motion that we fund, let me see who they were, so I get them right. American Red Cross,
Beginning?
and what was the other one?
Was it New Beginning?
Child and Family Services.
Child Family Services.
And fund them at zero.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
I'd like to make a motion that we level fund the Tilton Northfield Old Home Day Committee for the amount of $3,000.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
I think this is, they've shown that they're invested the money that we have back into the infrastructure of it. They do a great job with the so few people that they have, and this is the spirit of our community, and it shows, the two towns work together, that we should continue funding them at the same rate that I believe it's probably been 5-6 years or more since they've
3
increased
years
it.
ago, they went
Yeah.
up $1,000, but it's money well worth spent. People have a wonderful time, and it is our local community. And I was very, very happy to see this year that everything we suggested they do last year, they took to heart and they responded the way we had suggested.
But your presentation, Joe and Deb, and presentation was one that was known. You didn't feel that they felt they were being punished for trying to do the right thing, which is to be a Scrooge or a miser. Sometimes we have to open up the purse strings, right, Joe?
And when we discussed the fact that all of our equipment was faulty and wasn't even functional in some cases, and the fact that we are a 501c3 and to have $7,000 left over at the end of the year didn't fit in with that mission.
Right.
We got to have some money to purchase food, and there's some seed money we need to start. But $7,000, let's get another band. We did some this year, and we have plans to do more.
Good, thank you.
All right.
Make
Any
it
more
a
discussion?
bigger event, a better event.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? Steve? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain
Abstained?
as a member of
One
the
abstention.
Home Day Committee.
Well, the time is now 7:35, and CASA is not here.
I move that we fund CASA with zero money.
I think that we need, just my opinion again, that we wait a week like we did with the other two.
See, in
To
case
see.
there was
Okay.
some type of,
Yeah, if there was some kind of a fluke or whatever.
Johanna, never mind.
And does everybody agree with that? I
Yes.
think in fairness that we should do that.
I hope they show up because CASA is a good thing.
Very good thing. Well, so is Child and Family Services,
They're all good things. I agree.
you know?
Yes.
Oh, no, I definitely agree.
I don't think we have anybody who's asked for money that isn't worthwhile. It's just that money's tighter and tighter, and
Yeah.
Oh, we're getting a big 2% raise. Oh,
I know. But every good nonprofit also has a good business sense.
Yeah, well, if they don't have it together to do this, what about the rest of their operation?
That's why social workers do not make good administrators. Because we're out doing the minutia. And administrators have to look at the money.
I'm very surprised that Genesis is not here yet. They usually come in with many, many people, but I believe they have don't they have a new director?
I think you're right, but I think Maggie's still there.
Yes.
I think she's there, but I don't think she's in the position she was in before.
Huh. I'm not sure.
Maggie Pritchard.
I'm familiar with Genesis. All I know, and I've dealt with Genesis on the budgetary level for 7 years now, and I still have questions about the way they do things. I don't think they're misappropriating money, but I talked to the town welfare officer over the years, and she makes referrals that go unanswered, and the level of the day-to-day nuts and bolts of this operation has not suited the town of Tilton well. So,
Well,
if they're not accepting people from the town of Tilton, they're providing us with a service, because this is what we're buying here, is a service. And if the service is not forthcoming, I have a hard time voting to fund them, no matter how good and necessary their work is.
I agree.
Well, I know that I have heard traditionally that they told people to move to Tilton because Tilton was a good welfare program. And this year, I've been involved with an individual who basically was told that.
I've heard that before myself.
I mean, I had heard it, but it was only rumor, so to speak. It was only second, third hand. This, I heard it from the person's mouth. That when I said, "Why are you in Tilton?" and that was the answer I got.
Well, there you go. That's what we're paying for from Genesis.
Jane, what happened to the Winnie Transit system?
They didn't have enough money because there were only two towns, Tilton and Laconia, that contributed anything to them.
And I think we gave more than Laconia.
Hmm?
We were even actually paying more than Laconia.
I'm not
We
sure.
did what we could do
Yeah,
for
they
that
paid for- I think
outfit.
Laconia paid
It
for
was
that,
such a
but-
desperately needed
Yeah.
thing for some, but not enough to pay for it, unfortunately.
Very well used by our community.
Yeah.
So they're not running any service at all in the
There's
state?
still the senior bus for seniors and handicapped people,
Okay.
but that's it. And it is unfortunate.
I was gonna say, because that's a major nexus of transportation for the town.
Some people used it for hospital runs and
Doctors,
store. That's
demolitions.
the only way they could get to the store. They stopped at the pharmacies and they did, they'd go to Blueberry Lane on one end and Franklin Hospital on the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And stop all the way back and forth in between.
And they even changed their schedule at times so that people could get to job interviews. There were people who used it to work at J. Jill. So it's a shame. I mean, we're paying the price.
But it is what it is
Yeah.
at this point.
And we can't be the only ones that fund. We have 5 more minutes.
Absolutely. So Jane, what do we have for next week?
Next week is the Island Concert Series and CAP.
Did you find out if Chris is going to come?
I do not know.
Okay.
And Johanna, thank you for the follow-up with the Hardwell and the Deb Shepherd data. Boy, I got those on the computer, which was boggled my mind.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually looking at the computer. It scares me.
I believe that the dispatchers start November 1st.
Oh, some news on the dispatchers. They were going to be hired in at $18.50 per hour. Yeah, $18.75 per hour.
1975, yeah.
Well, they came back to us as the selectmen last week and said that the two that they wanted to hire actually wanted $19.50 per hour. And they asked for the selectmen for permission to give them, start them at a higher step. So that means that next spring, they'll go up another $1 an hour to $20.50 an hour. And that was approved by the selectmen. I did not vote for that. I was totally against it. They had 14 people who applied for this job, and they took the top 2. There were still 12 other applicants.
Well, taking the top 2 isn't a bad thing, is it?
But they have a contract.
But
Well,
we
they-
had
I
a
think-
I get
budget.
that.
We had a,
Job didn't they have down there with the salary.
We had a budget, and they came to us for a certain amount. There was no counteroffers or anything.
Yeah, well, they,
You know, if somebody,
I
if you
think
go and
the-
apply for a job, you always ask for as much
Right.
as you can get up,
The
start with.
reason I thought that it was justified is because they both are trainers. So it will prevent us from having to do additional training.
Has Tim come up with adjusted figures for the 1950?
He's gonna present that tomorrow night, I believe he told me. I talked to Tim earlier today, and he's gonna come up with some adjustments tomorrow that he'll present to the selectmen.
Adjustments for which?
I think with the new figures for the dispatch.
If they go to 1950?
2050.
Because Tim presented us figures last week,
So then-
Yeah, oh, yeah.
based upon 1875 in benefits. Okay? Now that will change. That was the estimate he gave us, was $180,000.
He told me earlier that he was gonna hide.
About $6,000
Are
a year
you
or more.
CASA?
No.
Genesis.
Okay. All right, well, welcome, come on up.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you.
No, that's all
We're
right.
ahead of
Just getting
schedule.
ready to go home because you didn't show up on time.
Yes, come.
Have a seat,
Thank you.
and we have a, there, is this it? Will you sign this, please?
I will. Thank you.
I was shocked not to see you because I said Genesis is always here with great numbers. You're by yourself
I'm
tonight.
by myself tonight. Oh, there's a lot going on tonight. Excuse me.
All right, and we're the Budget Committee. I'm Jane Alden, I'm the chair. Start around with Steve
Hi, Steve.
Wayne Brock.
Rainbow.
Joe Chessman.
I'm
John
John
Scanlon.
Scanlon.
Hi, nice to meet you, or see you again.
Yeah.
I met
You would
you.
be?
I'm sorry, my name is Ann Nichols. I'm the Director of Development and Public Relations
Okay.
for Genesis Behavioral Health. So, I have some cards if you want to pass them around. The other thing, hot off the presses are the
Thank you.
the audited financials we just got back for fiscal year 2016, which ended June 30th, their fiscal year 17. So I have 5 copies here for you, so if you want. I'm sorry that you didn't have them in advance.
Okay.
We just got them in this week.
All right, Ann.
So, has everyone had a chance to look at our application? This is, not our first go-around, and you with us, so, I think some of the things to note as it pertains to Tilton was that we actually saw about a 9% increase in the residents who were served by Genesis Behavioral Health over last fiscal year. It went from about 154, I think it was last year, to 169. And it's increasing in most of the towns that we serve. I think in terms of the adult population, it decreased a little bit from last year, the number of adult residents in Tilton that we served. But the elder population has increased like 34%. So I thought that was kind of noteworthy, just to mention to you. Emergency services, it did go down about $5,000 in terms of the charity care. Went down about $5,000 from what was spent last year. It was around the $45,000. But the number of residents that we serve in emergency services, which is what our funding application pertains to, there was a 25% increase in the number of Tilton residents that required emergency services this year. So I don't know if you have some specific questions for me that you'd like me to address. Everything was kind of laid out in the application, so I don't want to bore you with reading something to you, but
I have concerns about some of the levels of services which you provide. I spent a number of years working with the town welfare officer who has stated to me repeatedly that Genesis has been less than helpful to her on any number of different occasions. She refers people there and there's no room at the inn. I don't know. I can't discuss the specifics. This is more just a general sense of it has been difficult to get the services from Genesis.
and without specifics, it's hard for
I
me to
understand
kind
that. I
of address
understand
that. I know that, there are some referrals in this area that go down to Riverbend in Concord. We're kind of right on that line there. But I do know that, we provide services to Franklin Hospital, so I'm not sure if that's where her concerns were,
She'll
or...
have people come in and that she'll be dealing with in her capacity.
Uh-huh.
That she refers to Genesis Behavioral Health because of some of the issues that they might be experiencing, and they go to Genesis and they are not served, or they're not served. I can't discuss the specifics because I just don't know them, but year after year she tells me this.
Yeah, and that concerns me because I'm not aware of that. I've served in this capacity for a year, but prior to that, I served on the board for 9 years for Genesis and chaired their board.
I'll talk to the welfare officer.
I would be
See about
interested.
specifics.
Yeah, I would
I
be
haven't talked to her
interested.
this year. This is just
Something in the past.
something that's been regular in the past.
Okay.
'Cause I
One of the
was-
things that we've heard in the past, if I can interject this, is that people have moved into Tilton who were clients of Genesis, and the reason they moved into Tilton was because Genesis told them if they came to Tilton, they'd get all kinds of help.
Well, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Pardon?
Yeah, I find that.
Well, I personally know this year of one person who moved to Tilton, and I said, why did you move to Tilton? And this person said, because Genesis told me if I came to Tilton, I could get all kinds of services. I was told that by the person. I also know that there are times that an individual that I've been personally involved with doesn't get services. And when I or someone else who happens to know Maggie Pritchard calls Maggie, that person suddenly gets the services. So I guess my concern, and we don't mind calling Maggie because we know her, but it concerns me that we would have to do that when someone is a client of Genesis. Why does someone other than that individual have to call for help before help is provided?
No, and that should never be happening.
And I think that does happen.
Yeah, it should never be happening. We serve almost 4,000 patients a year. And it wouldn't make any sense to me why someone would move to Tilton to get more services. Especially when we have all of our services right here in the Lakes region.
It doesn't make sense to me either, but
No.
I've heard that out of people's mouths. And I know you don't personally deal with all 4,000 people that go through the Genesis system, certainly. Then I start to wonder about what some of the counselors or caseworkers over there are about. I have these concerns. Not to say that Genesis is not a much needed resource in the area, because it is, and I know it. But the way that they do things gives me pause sometimes.
Yeah, and as I said, I can't defend one way or the other simply because I don't know the
Well,
specifics.
you probably, even if I knew the specifics, you couldn't defend it because you never heard it before. But just take it under advisement, at least from me, that I'm not the only one with concerns.
Okay.
As a
And for many
person,
years, we didn't give money to Genesis
That's
for
right.
that reason. So we have seen some benefit in Genesis. Otherwise, we would not have given you money last year. But I think there are areas for improvement, and I think this is an opportunity to let you know that.
And I appreciate that. I think, you know, there's a number of challenges that we're facing, and it's not unique to Genesis. It's unique to mental health professionals and many social service agencies, and that is a workforce shortage, which could impact some of, or contribute maybe to some of the feedback that you've heard. That results in changeover of staff. So, which, you know, can be very disruptive to a patient. There's no question. Quite honestly, people aren't coming out of college into this profession because you don't do it for the money. When you have master's level clinicians that make $37,000 a year, that gives you a pretty good idea that you're not in this for the money. But the other challenge that we faced is that with the ongoing opioid crisis, a lot of money has been funneled into that care. So we have lost staff to other agencies who are the recipients of that money because that's solely what they deal with. We have very good partnerships with a lot of organizations in all of our communities. So, you know, we try the best that we can to retain staff. We try to increase our workplace staff training. We provide in-house a method for our staff to obtain their masters. New England College comes in and actually does coursework with our staff so that they can attain their masters. There's a number of things that we're trying to do to kind of head that off because it's a real problem, and it's not just here, it's in the United States, it's all across the country, workplace shortage. So, you know, that may be impacting or maybe the cause, the frustration that you might be hearing. Because certainly that's very disruptive to a patient's care. If you've got a changeover in therapists or team leaders or what have you, or you're using multiple programs.
My concern is about a little over a year ago, people from Genesis came in and asked if any of us would be interested in serving on one of their citizens committees. And I said, yes, I would. I got one email, and that's all I've ever heard from them. It was a committee of the different towns that went in to take a look at programs, to give feedback, and it was set up, but I never heard anything.
I'm not aware of that because I probably would have been the one to ask you. And I'm not aware of that at all. Is it Genesis Behavioral Health or is it Genesis Healthcare? They're two different...
It was Genesis Behavioral Health.
Was it? Okay.
Remember, Jane? They had asked for a volunteer to be on that.
Yeah, I recall, yeah, it was at one of the meetings when it was presented, not last year, before.
I would
Yeah.
think it was a year before that it was.
And
okay.
Wayne volunteered to be on the
Yeah.
committee.
Okay.
So I think that's
But-
one of the things that might help, because when we were talking about it, we were having communication problems with our director, and one of the things we were looking for was that person to present these problems right then and there and start to get things ironed out before it gets to a point like Joe's pointing at, that people are just off the deep end. And we have to take a look at that and say, well, how can we best represent the people of Tilton? And one of them is to get some of the snafus that are going on cleaned up as quickly as possible. And that was what that citizens committee was doing, that they could come, sit with staff, and discuss what was going on in their towns and how to best look at that.
Okay.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Recently, just this year, they stopped doing the Winnie Transit, which a lot of times people with disabilities and that don't have any transportation, many of them don't have the money to get to and from appointments. Now they would be stuck taking a taxi. What type of outreach or satellite or other opportunities, has Genesis picked anything up on that so that they could cover for these people that can't get there?
We actually purchased a second bus. So we have one now for our Tilton office, the satellite office, and we have one in Laconia that we've been running all along. And we use that to transport patients from home to medical appointments, not necessarily limited to Genesis appointments. It could be physician appointments, it could be shopping, because it's important that we help patients in their wellness program to make good choices in terms of what they're buying for food. So we have transportation services already in place and have for a number of years. Before we purchased the second bus in Plymouth, our staff was doing the driving. And, for that reason, we applied for a grant through the transportation department in the state of New Hampshire and got that grant. So the bus arrived, I think it was in July, to serve that area. So now it can really, because that is truly a rural area up there in that area. So
Is it for the Tilton area solely, the second bus?
no, it's not solely for the Tilton area. The bus at our Plymouth office serves all of the areas in that area, and our bus in Laconia serves the more of the Southern Lakes region area. So, including this, if it was needed. So,
On the
That's great.
positive side, I've heard very good things about your services with young people,
oh, good.
okay? You said that your elderly population that you're serving in Tilton has increased by 34%. One of the things that concerns me about that, because I work with the elderly a lot, is that one of the complaints I've heard from Genesis clients is that they cannot depend on having the same therapist consistently. That especially concerns me with elderly people, because it takes a lot for an elderly person to reach out for help. And once they're comfortable with a therapist or whatever, to suddenly find the next time they go in for an appointment, it's with somebody new, that's very disruptive. Is that being addressed at all, having the same therapist? I know you have a turnover problem. I know there's a lot of burnout with social work, but is that something that's being addressed? with the
Well, we're
elderly?
addressing it, yes, as best as we can. It speaks to the greater issue of workforce problems in New Hampshire, as well as beyond. But yeah, that's part of the problem, is that when we have, and it's not limited to therapists, that includes our medical staff too, because we have, doctors, we have registered nurse practitioners, we have a full pharmacy. We provide laboratory services if someone needs, blood draw, something like that, that's court related. We can do all of that. So, yeah, it's at all levels of the organization that workforce challenge. It's ongoing. Our turnover rate is not as high as some mental health centers in the state. There's 10 of them that are designated by the state to provide these services. But nonetheless, it's painful, it's expensive, and it's more importantly disruptive, particularly to our elderly clientele. So that's why we're trying to find ways in which to let people do their professional development and move on with their degrees. And because that's a huge thing if someone can do that through their work. The other thing that we're doing is, you may be aware that we have recently purchased a new facility, a new building in downtown Laconia. Because right now, we're spread out all over 4 or 5 different locations. So with the exception of our medical staff that works in the ER at the hospital, our child and family is in one location, our adult services in another, then you have administration in 2 other locations. And so all of those are going to be consolidated into one building. And the beauty of that is it will also help us to address some of those issues. When we have all of the staff in one location, it makes it much easier to serve clients instead of people driving around. We've also moved some staff from Plymouth into Laconia depending on which population needs it. So we're becoming much more flexible in terms of how we're scheduling, and going beyond the fact it'll improve efficiencies and all of that. So we hope to be in that new facility in January. And I think that will
be located.
You're familiar with downtown Laconia?
Oh,
It's the former Health Link building that was owned by LRG Healthcare.
yeah.
It's right next to Citizens Bank. That entire building. So the first floor will be our adult services, and then the second floor will be our child and family, and third floor will be our executive and administrative business office, and some of our community folks who primarily work out in the communities. They just need a place to land where they can enter their notes. Other than that, they're out visiting patients in their home. So all of those services will all be under one roof. So
It would be easier for you to manage too, I would imagine.
manage, absolutely. And to have all the staff in one, it will help fill some of those service gaps that you're hearing about. And it's important because the business is growing. And it's necessary. It's been a plan that's been 10 years in the making, so a lot of very exciting time, but it's going to address some of the issues that you've raised tonight.
How were you impacted by cuts at the county level this year? Well, I think you were hit fairly hard.
It's a valid question.
No, I think you were hit fairly hard, that's why.
It did, and the only reason that it didn't involve any staff layoffs is because we had openings. Last I heard, we had 23 openings. So if we had 100% staff on board, then yeah, it probably would have required us to cut staff. Now understand that the county funding funds a different program
I know that.
than the towns, and I know you know that. But yeah, that's our adult services, that's our short-term services, so that will have an impact going forward, I'm sure. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'm all set.
I'm also.
John?
No, thank you very much.
All right.
Very informative.
I appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your honesty. Yeah, did you get a copy of that, John?
Which one is that? What's that dated?
That's the PD dispatch.
But
We got that.
this is,
It's like last week or the beginning of the week.
Because you weren't here last week,
no, I was here last week, but
when was,
You have that, John, I believe.
there's 2 different rates on here. I'm not sure if this is prior
I think that's,
11th.
that's not what they, what.
This is
we
prior
got
to
handed
them
out, yeah.
asking to give the raise to it.
Wait, that was just what we were given
Yeah.
So
originally.
before the raise
Yep.
increase.
All right, does anybody have anything else?
I'd like to revisit my earlier motion. The earlier motion, didn't
Oh,
we vote
did
to
we do the vote?
deny funding
Because we
to
got,
Genesis Health?
pardon?
Didn't we vote to deny funding to Genesis Health?
No,
No,
Which one was it then?
no.
Child and Family Services.
Child and Family.
Child and Family Service. I'll be all right, John. Maybe not.
No, because, you know, I want to think about Genesis before I vote. Anybody else want?
we can get some input from Christine and
Yeah.
I'd like to
Particular-
talk to Heather, see if they've been more responsive. This person that came in tonight was presented a far more compelling case than the people that I've dealt with in the past from Genesis. And I don't want to dismiss them out of hand necessarily, but I've never voted to fund Genesis.
Well, we
In the
voted,
past.
we did fund them last year.
yeah, last year we did see a turnaround.
Me personally, on the
Oh,
Board
okay.
of Selectmen, I voted against funding Genesis.
Well, I want to really think about it. Do some more talking to people that I know use their services.
Next week.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it.
Okay.
Anything else?
So hearing no further business, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Vote with your feet. That's an aye.
John, you must be hungry.
Aye.